All right, fortunately here we're talking about an incident that gathered us to discuss a possible active shooter here on Scottsville Road. The best possible outcome is no one's injured. What played out? Here's as we know it as of right now. A few weeks ago at 1300 Scottsville Road, RG&E, an employee was sent home early. That was a supervisor's call to send an employee home and work on some personnel issues with that employee. Over the next couple of weeks, rumors precipitated at RG&E, which led to Facebook messages going out today on Facebook Messenger, not to the general public, but to a small group. At about 11 o'clock, at about 8:32, we received a phone call that that employee was at RG&E leaving, the one that was let go 2 weeks earlier. We responded to that call, confirmed by a video and in witness statements that the employee was never on property since at least 6 o'clock this morning. That information was turned over to our investigative unit to follow up on any potential threats per our protocols. As rumors started to unfold about our response and the employee being sent home a couple weeks earlier, it led to a Facebook message, which led to another Facebook message that led to a call into 1200 Scottsville Road, also where the FBI is housed and a part of our task force from the Roanoke County Sheriff's Office. That information turns into a possible active shooter threat at 1200, and protocols are put in place. Deputies called active shooter, FBI and deputies and Homeland Security officials started clearing 1200. Immediately our investigators started backtracking that information where it came from, and that led us back to 1300 for the earlier call of possibly related, before we knew actual information, that led us back to 1300 to clear 1300 for a possible active shooter. Both locations were secured by evacuating as many people as possible, put multiple entry teams from multiple jurisdictions in both locations simultaneously, establishing 2 incident command systems, 2 different radio frequencies, and coordinating over 100 responding officers, deputies, troopers, and anybody else that would come to a situation like this. We also maintain an exterior force. God forbid this is a swatting call or a distractionary call, to make sure we had sufficient resources anywhere else in the county should this be a false call. We have since completed both clearings of both locations. There is no active shooter that we can report of. There is no active crime scene. There was no shooting. Protocols were followed. Training that's been put in place over years was followed. The response, I was one of the first deputies on scene at 1300. I watched multiple jurisdictions of officers, plainclothes officers, grab shotguns and run through the door doing what they're trained to do, go towards that threat. And we're all too familiar with that in our recent history. I am proud of the response of everybody that responded. I'm proud of the incident command system that was set up. I'm proud of the reaction task force that we designed. And if you don't know what that is, that's fire, EMS, and police personnel training for reaction task that can go in and save people in a hot zone that hasn't been cleared. That was implemented today for one of the first times I've seen. Within minutes, we had first responders that included EMS and paramedic personnel that possibly could have relieved our personnel on any shot victims. So again, the end state is the places have been cleared, both locations. There is no active shooter. Finally, the person that precipitated this whole thing, the employee that was let go, sent home a couple weeks ago, we do have that employee. We are talking to him. He is not an active threat at this time. And everything else we've been looking at is just going to be follow-up for probably a few days on all this information. Let me just check my notes, make sure I hit everything I want to say. One more agency that I got to mention is the 911, the ECD dispatchers. When you have an incident like this with multiple jurisdictions, with multiple different radio frequencies coming and responding, our deconflicting cops is very important to us. Our coordinating the response of different cops. The way we're designed, first cop on scene, muster up with 2 or 3 and let's get through that door as quick as possible. Sometimes we can't even talk on our own radio. Multiply that at 2 different locations just a few hundred feet away, that's confusion. And ECD did a phenomenal job splitting our channels and allow us to communicate efficiently. They should be noted for that. So I'll take any questions you might have about today's response. Or
can you say what type of messages were displayed to make somebody make this call?
Yeah, and I'd like to emphasize our investigators who've backtracked and talked to almost everybody in that chain of communication. We've talked to almost every one of those people so far, already, which is awesome. It's not a swatting call. It was information. It's like that phone tree that we all played in college, right? Where one person says it, another person says it, the story gets exasperated a little, and out of an abundance of caution and the fact that an employee had been let go earlier, it simply turned into you might have a SWAT or you might have an active shooter on Scottsville Road. That led to a call at 1200. Hey, you got an active shooter over there? that led to information being led to officers and FBI agents, and then 1300 kicks in. So really not a swatting call by any means. It's they see something, say something, and in the state that we're living in right now, people are abundance of caution is the right thing to do.
Yes, Sheriff, I was going to ask, do you think, I mean, this is how you would have handled it regardless, but do you think that the emotions of the people involved with the messages early on were heightened, perhaps because of what's been happening just west of here?
Yeah, first of all, under stressful conditions, we respond to training. We all do. And we've been training reactive shooter, right? We've been training active shooter response for a couple years. We just got done training an hour off the road in service for our reactive task force. How do we combine with the EMS and fires? We've been, talking about this. Then, of course, the horrific massacre that occurred last week, that's in the back of the minds. And what I saw is deputies and officers from the Gates Police Department, from troopers, running through a door, and I'm sure in the back of their mind was Buffalo. And what are they going to encounter on the other side of the door? You don't have time to figure it out what's really occurring. You got to react to it in these situations, and then we can dust everything off later and put the investigation together. So absolutely, in the back of my mind, absolutely. When I heard the first click on the mic and the deputy says active shooter 1200 Scottsville Road, you're thinking the worst, and you should. Let's plan and train for the worst, and the rest is kind of easy after that.
Was it security at those businesses that contacted you? Was it people who were in the text change or the messaging change? Do you have, I know you and I were supposed to talk about this today, but do you have officers who are monitoring social media posts for threats too?
Yeah, so we have a crime analysis center here in Rochester. They do a great job monitoring. And the key part of all that is if it's like this was on a private message group, right? So it wouldn't be out there. When they say they post, it's not out there in the World Wide Web that any scanning system that we all could see could pick up on, right? It's got to be information that we could see, or more importantly, it's got to be people that see something, say something, right? That's so important. With this particular thing, it turned into a rumor mill, really, that precipitated a call on the 1200 Scottsville Road because they knew someone worked there. Hey, do you have an active shooter? Because it was a general comment about Scottsville Road at first, and they just, based on that, they do what they're going to do based on the heightened alert that we're all under. They say, I think we got an active shooter here, and that clicks the mic, and we go to our protocols.
Was there ever a message from that alleged person who was fired threatening to use a gun, or was he or she spotted on the property at all?
No, today that employee was not on the property. We went back to 0600, 6 o'clock this morning, verified with video. And again, we have that person talking to sheriff's deputies right now, not an active threat by any means. So it's going to take us a while to piece all this together. You can only imagine the investigators have done what I just gave you. That's 2 hours of work. That's, I don't know how many text messages, how many direct messages on Facebook. A lot of those people are employed in different locations. They had to go physically to their location employee, look them in the face. What do you know, right? And try and debrief them. Some people are nervous about talking because they might have thought, did I start a swatting call? So they're doing a great job trying to piece it all together. It's going to take a while to piece all that information together. But what we're confident in saying is we found out what precipitated this whole thing. Our protocols went into play, and there is no active threat at this time.
When you talk about piecing this together, do you think there will be charges in the coming days because of a large incident like this?
Well, I don't know if there'll be charges. If someone intentionally did this, like a swatting call that we're becoming very familiar, absolutely we place charges. Our preliminary investigation doesn't show this. This was, if you will, a phone tree that led to information that led people to think there was possibly an active shooter somewhere on Scottsville Road, that led to a call inside 1200 Scottsville Road, that led to protocols on plane. Really that simple. And in this day and age that we live in this world we live in, that's the right thing to do, I think. Call 911, and say, I think I got a problem. Let us go there, do our protocols, and figure it out and keep everybody safe. The end result, just like I started, everybody's safe in this scenario, right? And if it was an active shooter, I think our protocols would have at least minimized the exposure. We can't prevent everything from occurring, but I watched deputies and officers run through a door not knowing each other's name. That's exactly what we're designed to do initially.
And I know you talked about what was going on through the officer's mind. Do you think this rumor mill, as you called it, this phone tree, was fueled by recent panic?
Well, I'm not going to speak on behalf of everybody else, but I think we're all living under that state of a little bit of fear and anxiousness. We watched a horrific, hate-filled attack on innocent people the other day in Buffalo. And if we don't respond to that appropriately, and that includes the community. If that's not sitting in the back of their mind right now, we've got something wrong in the society, that we're going to try and protect our neighbors as much as possible. And that's what happened. I think out of the abundance of caution, people are just reacting to, we're going to protect our neighbors. If I got information, I'm going to share it. And it's shared to the right point, that it triggered a response by law enforcement. And again, the response was per protocol. I can't say enough about the whole process. I think it was community member looking out for community member.
What was the scene like inside? These are businesses. A lot of businesses we know train now their employees for these type of situations. Yeah. What did your officers experience?
Well, one of the locations housed some law enforcement officers, so that was nice to have an initial team. I mean, that building was being cleared as soon as the mic was cleared. The mic was clicked. The other building, it was literally 2 or 3 minutes, I think, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. I don't know the timeline right now. And as I pulled up, there was multiple officers pulling up, and it was a matter of seconds before they mustered up as a group and started penetrating that building. You know, that's impressive when you actually get to watch it. You know, this is the day and age we live in. You know, you got to follow through on these things, and you know, I can't say enough about the whole response protocols. Yeah, there was a lot of people there, a lot of resources, but even my command staff, when they were looking and saying, all right, we're not going to get sucked into something here if it's a false call, they even had the wherewithal to set up secondary locations for staging areas should this be a false call dragging us all to Scottsville Road.
What about the people inside, though? The employees?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
were they, like, sheltering in place?
Yeah,
Like,
no.
what was the-
Oh, I'm sorry. Your
Yeah.
question's great. So run, hide, fight. You know, we've seen some of that on Scottsville Road, RG&E. I've seen people getting out of the building that had a safe access to get out, if you will. They took cover. You know, they moved to certain parts of the building. We initially put deputies with them, just muster them up over here, keep them safe. The people that were inside, there were some people that were locked in. You know, run, hide, fight. They were locked in, and we had to get them out of those different offices inside RG&E. And some offices were locked. We had to get in those offices. So you know, those protocols played out that we've been training the civilian world, and you know, it's just nice to see, I guess, if you know, when the worst happens, that people are listening, they're taking heed, what's their own personal safety protocols, and able to respond to that.